All right, guys, we're moving on to topic 2.3, and this is kind of the main event of the entire unit where we're talking about the British colonies. And more specifically, we're dividing this into regions. So, once again, you need to be looking at these comparatively and also apply it to the learning objective. So, that's kind of the way I'm going to go through it as we're doing it here. Once again, this was on your summer assignment. We did it. You've got a chart on it. So, let's kind of briefly go through it. If you look at learning objective 1, explain how and why environmental and other factors shape the development and expansion of the British colonies. So the first thing that you have to take into consideration while you're studying this is, how does environment play into this? Well, it's all going to come down to more or less their economies. So as we go through it, if you're looking at A, well, let me move back a little bit before we do that. You need to be able to associate a couple of colonies at least with the different regions. So if you look at A, we're talking about the Chesapeake and North Carolina colonies. If you hear Chesapeake, the first thing that needs to hit your head is Virginia and Maryland. If you're looking under B with the New England colonies for the main event here, and that's all we're focusing on, you need to be looking at the Massachusetts Bay Colony. We're talking about the middle colonies. We're dealing with Pennsylvania and New York, and then the southern Atlantic colonies are going to consist of South Carolina and Georgia. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's figure out how environment plays a role in this. And really, it boils around agriculture, which many things during this time period do. So when we're dealing with the Chesapeake, the fact that they are able to grow some crops, such as tobacco, is really going to contribute to the development of these colonies, with their climate, with their soils, with everything else. So as you're dealing with them, thinking about it economically, we're talking about tobacco. As I said earlier, you need to kind of translate that into their labor systems. And initially, as we talked about, it's going to be indentured servitude, which is going to be structured around the headright system. So you need to be familiar with both of those. Going forward, moving into Atlantic slavery, we'll talk about this a little bit later, or you'll see it a little bit later, but Bacon's Rebellion is what really transitions the Chesapeake colonies into Atlantic slavery. And then when it comes to Maryland, the big thing to know with that, along with some of this economic stuff, is it was different than Virginia in the fact that they allowed Catholics under the Act of Toleration. So as you go through the rest of these, use that as an anchor point and kind of compare the other colonial regions to the Chesapeake, or you can do it any way. Just have an anchor point and compare to that. So B is dealing with the New England colonies, and obviously we're talking about the Puritans. With their environment, they're looking at shorter growing seasons, rocky soils. They're not able to farm like they are in other regions. So they had to develop a mixed economy where there is a little bit of agriculture, but there's also more trade, harvesting of raw materials, shipping, different things as it goes. With the religious aspects of it, obviously with the Puritans, you need to start looking at this stuff with John Winthrop and his City on a Hill speech, and then take it into the characteristics of the Puritans after that. For C, with the middle colonies, with Pennsylvania and New York, these are the bread colonies. These are the places, or this is the place in the country that is best suited for the farming of what are called cereal crops, like rye, like wheat, hence the bread colonies. So their economy is going to be based on that. As far as their other characteristics, they are more tolerant than other colonies. They have better relations with Indians. This is due to leadership of William Penn and the Quaker mentality of this region. So make sure you can take that and differentiate it with the ones above. And as we move into the southern Atlantic coast with Georgia and South Carolina, this is the really heavy agriculture region with rice and indigo, because they have a longer growing season. The climate is good for these two crops. This is an area that, along with the Chesapeake, is going to focus on coerced labor systems or Atlantic slavery as we go through it. And then tacked in at the bottom here with E, we're talking about the key word within this is self-governing institutions. You need to know two, one from the Chesapeake region and one from Massachusetts or the New England region. You've got the House of Burgesses and New England town meetings. You need to be able to identify them with self-governing institutions and then look at how both of those are composed.